America was established not to create wealth, but to realize a vision, to realize an ideal, to discover and maintain liberty among men. Join us now with host Dr. Catherine Bene, Julie, Americans who make a difference.
Welcome to American Visions. I'm Dr. Catherine Bene, your host for the show with my dog, Julie. You may think she looks like Bullwinkle tonight. Well, this show is designed to give you glimpses into the lives of Americans. So stay with us. We'll show you the sights and have you hear the sounds of America and its people. So let's look at the land and its people. Well, tonight we have a husband and wife who, during their marriage, have shared their love for the environment, hiking, and nature, and they're going to tell you how you can better do it and safely. But before we do that, let's look at our flower arrangement. It's from Flower World, unique and personal flower arrangements for you and yours. It's a very naturalistic type of arrangement, and you'll see the birds nestled in amongst the fallen leaves and the beautiful wildflowers. It's really a great depiction of our theme. They're from Flower World, unique and personal flower arrangements. You'll find Flower World at 2925 East Prospect Road. I hope you go to visit them. They're good friends and they'll take good care of you. And without any further ado, I'd like for you to meet some very special friends of mine. It's Dr. Ann Woods and her husband, Chuck Strehl. Well, welcome to the show. You've been on here before. Welcome back.
Well, thank you very much, Kathy. We're delighted to be here.
Well, I happen to know in all the years that I've known you that your family has always gone hiking, in particular along the Appalachian Trail. So how has this interest in hiking developed?
Well, right here in Pennsylvania, in York County, the Appalachian Trail is very close, and Chuck will talk a little bit more about that, how close it is. But we wanted to have our children experience the outdoors, and so we started hiking the trail in Pennsylvania. And we've been hiking for 20 years, and we're still not quite done yet.
Interesting. Well, Chuck, tell us a little bit about the Appalachian Trail for our viewers who are not familiar with it.
The Appalachian Trail is a public footpath, and it runs...
Is it a national park?
It actually, in a sense it is. It's a national scenic trail, which is close kin, and it's overseen by the National Park Service, Department of Interior. But the trail was actually built by hiking clubs and local and state and federal agencies. It goes back in time a considerable ways. And still today, most of the maintenance of the trail is done by volunteers.
Isn't that interesting? So the trail extends from where to where?
It runs from Springer Mountain in northern Georgia to Mount Katahdin in central Maine.
Wow. So all in all, that's a pretty long trail, over 2,000 miles?
Yes, it's over 2,000 miles. It starts in Georgia, goes through North Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, and ends in Maine.
Oh, that's just amazing. And how much of this trail would you estimate you've done?
We've done about 1,500 miles, right?
Well, what makes this trail so special, Ann? Well, why the Appalachian Trail as opposed to some other trail?
It's just really an exciting thing. It's varied. There are easy sections, difficult sections. It's a challenge, and it connects this northeastern corridor. It's something that you can plan for. You can day hike it. You can go for a short hike. You could go for a mile, and it's easily accessible, or you can go for a day or for a weekend or for months.
Is the trail a safe place to be, Chuck?
Well, yeah, it's not a paved footpath, so walking the trail means you're walking on a natural path, which means you should have sturdy footwear, decent shoes. You should dress appropriately. But with normal precautions, it's a very safe sport.
We'll talk a little bit more about how you get outfitted, but there was a very famous Yorker named Earl Schaefer who brought a lot of publicity to the trail.
Yes, he did. The trail was conceived by a planner. His name was Benton McKay, and he wrote an article in 1921. And he suggested that existing trails be connected and new trails be made to provide a recreational corridor from Georgia all the way to Maine. But at that time, most of the hiking trails were in New England. And the hiking clubs there thought it was a great idea, and they began to interconnect the trails. But it took a while. In the southeast, there were no existing trails, but at that time, the federal government was acquiring a lot of the mountain land, became the national forests and Great Smoky Mountains National Park and Shenandoah National Park. And so the trail was built across these lands in the southeast. And then the hiking clubs got together and formed what was called the Appalachian Trail Conference, which would coordinate the development of the trail. And it exists today as the Appalachian Trail Conservancy, and it's dedicated to the protection, management, and maintenance of the Appalachian Trail. The trail was officially completed in 1936 when the last section was blazed in Vermont. But then during World War II, the trail lay somewhat dormant. The nation's interests were elsewhere at that time. Then during the post-war period, there was increased interest in the trail, but there was also encroachments from development that were threatening the trail. The trail, as it was originally built, a lot of it was on private land, some of it was along public roads, whereas today we think of it as being in parkland. In those days, a lot of it was not. So the trail was threatened. And the idea always had been that someone could get on the trail and walk from Georgia to Maine. And in the spring of 1948, a spunky young man from York County, who was also a somewhat dissatisfied war veteran at that time, decided to start a hike, and he began walking the trail in Georgia. And
That was Earl Schaefer, right?
his
Chuck?
name was Earl Schaefer, and it was not easy. The thought was it couldn't really be done at that point in time. But he started. After a short time, he realized he needed to get rid of the tent he had brought, so he did. He got lost many times, but then he decided that he really could accomplish this thing, and he walked all the way to Maine.
Phenomenal. And you brought us some pictures to give us a little flavor of what the trail looks
Sure.
like for those of us who have never been on it.
This is a picture of Chuck and I starting a southern section of the trail. And you can see we're really excited, and we're we're pretty clean at this point. And then I have also a picture of how the trail is marked.
Oh, we did say it was a marked hiking trail.
It is a marked hiking trail. You can see that there's a white mark on the tree here. And that's called the blaze. And the trail is very simply marked with these white blazes. They're 2 inches by 6 inches on trees and poles. And when there's no trees, they're on the rocks.
And what do they tell you?
It tells you that this is the Appalachian Trail. There's no other trail that's marked with a white blaze like this. So you know where you are. And then when you have a double blaze, there's two white marks, one above each other. That means that there's something coming up. You either have to turn or you have to, it's a dangerous trail. And you can see that in this picture that Chuck had to climb all the way up this narrow little passageway, and we just barely fit. But
That's quite rustic, isn't it?
and there are a few signs, which some of the pictures showed earlier, that there's just a few lettered signs at road crossings that might just say Appalachian Trail.
Already it's come time for a break, but we're going to tell you more about how you get outfitted and what you take. But remember, Beverly Sills once said, "You may be disappointed if you fail, but you are doomed if you never try." We're going to hear from Etzweiler Funeral Home Personalized Funerals, because it's all about you, as well as Audio Professionals, your true hearing specialists. We'll be right back. Welcome back to American Visions. We are on the trail again with Dr. Ann Woods and Chuck Strehl. Specifically, we're talking about planning a hike on the Appalachian Trail. And when we left off, we were finding out a little bit about the history of the trail. Now we're really ready to start our hike. Where do we start?
All right, well, you want to get some books to do some research ahead of time, and
So planning your trip is important.
Planning your trips. The trail is 2,100 miles, and you get these trail guides. They are, each state has a trail guide, plus maps, and you don't want to carry a lot of stuff with you. You want to carry what you really need. So you study the book ahead of time. The book shows various landmarks and also road crossings, which is very good for section hikers, which we do a lot of section hiking. So you want to check the book, find out where you can park your car, where you can start your hike, and then but you don't carry this. You study this ahead of time, and then you carry your maps. So you want to do that, get organized, know what you're doing.
So Chuck, now it's time to pack your suitcase, which I assume is a backpack.
Yeah, there's changes in hiking practice, and I think the biggest trend in recent years has been to reduce weight. And so you want to pack as lightly as possible. Now, of course, it depends on what you're doing. Most of the people who hike the trail are hiking for a few minutes or a few hours to go to a lookout or a blueberry patch or to observe wildlife. And if you're doing that, you don't need very much gear. Maybe perhaps a day pack with your snacks and your lunch. You should always carry a canteen. Always recommend people have a hat, maybe some sunscreen, a little bit of first aid equipment. And if you have a map, you know where you're going, you're all set. Have a few hours of fun in the wild.
Well, and what do you wear? I see you are dressed in camouflage colors. Is that what you usually wear?
Well, we use these also for birding, and you don't want to be, you kind of want to be kind of camouflaged if you're birding. But hiking, these kind of colors fit into the woods, so you don't stand out, and you can kind of
scare the birds away.
Right, right. But anyway, you want to wear lightweight clothing that can be layered, and we hike a lot in shorts, so we have these zip-off pants. They're very handy. So when it gets cool, you can put the bottoms on. And you want to wear clothes that are partly polyester that dry quickly. Because 100% cotton would stay wet, and you get sweaty, and you might get rained on. So you want to do that. You want to wear sturdy shoes.
Oh, let's talk about the shoes. Can you hold a foot up there, Chuck?
See that?
Yeah, those are your hiking boots.
These are a pair of hiking boots.
Yeah. You don't want to wear flip-flops.
Oh, right, the latest trend, yeah. How do sneakers work?
The sneakers are okay.
They don't have the tread that he's got.
Right. You don't want to use sneakers if you're climbing mountains and things like that, but on the flatter sections, it's good.
And then if you're going to spend the night, do you have any other special considerations, Chuck?
Well, then you...
Well, where do you sleep? Let's start with that.
Well, there are a couple of options. We like to carry our own tent. We have a lightweight tent. It weighs...
Nan's holding up a picture of a tent. Go ahead.
Yeah, it weighs 2.5 pounds, so it's not too much to carry.
Yeah.
There are what are called shelters along the trail.
Shelters.
And those are really intended for long distance hikers. So if you don't have a tent, you can sleep in the shelter. Drawbacks of the shelter are there's no screen on the shelter. And
Oh,
so
for
you
mosquitoes
you may have visitors in the night. Mosquitoes or even mice may visit the shelter.
Now, this picture shows a lot of different people. Is that everybody you know?
No, not necessarily. You don't know who you're going to share the shelter with.
Oh, boy.
So it's interesting. There's some social activity on the trail as well. But you need a full backpacking pack. You need your tent. You need your sleeping bag and any pad you're going to put under the sleeping bag. You also need some cooking equipment.
Let me talk about the cooking equipment.
I'll let her talk about the cooking.
In the kitchen, here you go, Ann.
You want to carry food, and in front of the table we have a bear barrel, which helps protect your food.
Oh, I guess other uninvited guests want to join you from time to time.
That's right.
Yeah.
But we carry dehydrated food, pack and dried food. So you want something that can cook in less than 7 or 8 minutes at the most.
And where do you get freeze-dried food or dried food?
Oh, you can order from outfitters, and you can dry some of your own with the food dryer.
Do you do that?
Yes, I do.
What kind of foods?
I took some lasagna and spread it out on trays and dried it in a dryer, and then package it up and add water and heat it, and it's done.
Incredible, with spaghetti sauce and everything.
Yep.
Wow.
Spaghetti sauce is good.
How does it taste?
It's delicious. It wouldn't.
Of course, when you're hiking and you're hungry, anything would taste good, wouldn't it?
Right. And we also carry granola bars and various snacks.
Do you ever eat off the land? Is that legal?
Yes, it is. And in fact, we have done that. And we have a picture of one meal that we added. And these are some morels as well as some smilax,
Greenbrier.
budding smilax. And
Well, maybe we should
with that.
explain to our viewers your background, Chuck, that enables you to differentiate mushrooms. It's not everyone is capable of that. It's not always good practice, is it?
No, not unless you know what you're doing. Mushrooms have been a hobby of mine for a very long time. I am also a biologist by training, but there are non-biologists who safely collect mushrooms. But if you collect mushrooms, you obviously know what you're doing. And green plants can be toxic as well. So if you're collecting any kind of wild herbs to eat, you should know what you're doing.
Mm. And then we also carry lightweight pots. These are made out of titanium. And this is our stove, a little tiny alcohol stove. And it uses wood alcohol as a fuel, which is also lightweight. And then you don't want to carry a lot of dishes, so we have a bowl.
Tilt it a little bit.
Yep. We have a bowl and a cup and a spoon. And some of the hikers just eat out of their pots, but we like to take a bowl with us.
And what about a napkin?
No napkins.
No napkins.
Because you have to carry everything in and everything out.
Now, because you're carrying everything, what do you do about staying hydrated? Because everybody needs water.
Mm-hmm. Well, you obviously can't carry water with you for a week because it's very, very heavy.
Right.
So you get water at the streams and springs and sometimes ponds, and we carry some chemicals we use to treat the water. Mm-hmm. So we end up preparing about 5 liters of water a day to hike with.
How does that taste?
It tastes fine. It tastes fine. Sometimes it's brown looking from leaves and things in streams, but it tastes fine after the treatment. Doesn't taste bad.
Oh, besides just hiking and covering the terrain, is there anything else to do on the trail?
Yes, we love to do birds and look at plants and trees and the scenery. The scenery is beautiful, various mountaintops, and I have a picture of some friends of ours looking out the over and
that is
overlook.
breathtaking, isn't it?
That up a little.
I know without even going on the trail passes through Penmar Park. Sunday afternoons they always have dances, and it overlooks 3 states. You see the hikers passing through. It really is quite picturesque. Well, what do you do at night, Chuck? Campfire?
That depends. Today, there are a lot of places you actually can't make a campfire, but usually it's allowed at shelters, and if you're at a shelter, there usually is a fire. But frankly, when you're hiking, you get into a fairly simple pattern. You wake up in the morning, you make your breakfast, you break camp, then you walk, you stop and eat, then you walk, and then you think about where you're going to find water and camp that night. You obtain the water and purify it, you set up camp, make your dinner, and then if it's getting dark, you're tired.
Ready to go to sleep.
You often are. You may play some cards. We actually bring a book usually. Usually it's a light paperback. And I may read it aloud because you don't want to carry 2 books, so she can't read and I can't read out of separate books. So I'll just read aloud. We'll read a chapter.
A flashlight?
And that's usually enough. Yeah, we do. And it depends on the time of year. In the summer, you have lots of light. If you're hiking in the fall or spring, then you may have less hours of daylight.
And what did you tell me you do with the pages as you read them, Ann?
Oh, we rip them out and throw them away, burn them.
It's come time for a break. Dr. Seuss once said, "Today you are you. This is truer than true, that no one else is youer than you." Think about that. We're going to hear from East York Optical, setting your sights on a sharper focus. We'll be right back. Welcome back to American Visions. I'm Dr. Catherine Bene with Dr. Ann Woods and also Chuck Strehl, her husband, talking to you about the Appalachian Trail. But before we get back to that, we're going to ask them when we return about dental floss. And I want to talk to you a little bit about dental floss because you know the importance of dental flossing to keep your gums and your teeth healthy. And it's been around a long time, since 1882 when it was invented. Now, dental floss was initially made of silk, and then in the 1940s it was made of nylon, and now it's even made of Gore-Tex. A recent study has revealed some interesting statistics. Half of you feel guilty about not flossing, and one in three of you will actually lie to your dentist about flossing. Americans buy more than 3 million miles of it each year, and that's about 18 yards a person. And actually, This is only enough for one flossing a week with a 12-inch piece. Now consider the suggestion that flossing be done daily. We should be buying a minimum of 122 yards per person each year. Now, dental floss may also have some rather ingenious or novel uses. Some non-dental uses include shoelaces, kite string, cheesecake cutter, bead string, ukulele string, fishing line, picture hanger, or even replacement for the chain inside your toilet tank. Well, one clever inmate actually used it to cut through a wire fence. Another even sawed his way through his cell bars with some floss, while another braided it into a rope to scale a wall to escape. He must have been lightweight. Anyways, a word of advice to those of you who do floss: never flush it down the toilet. It's not biodegradable and can even clog the sewer system and eventually even the pumping station. Remember, life isn't merely about being alive, it's living well. And now back to Dr. Woods and Mr. Strehl. Dr. Ann, tell me, you're being a family practitioner. What are the healthful benefits of hiking?
Well, hiking is very good for you physically as well as mentally. It keeps you in good shape because you're walking and you're going up hills and down hills.
Gives you a real glow in your cheeks.
That's right, and it will give you exposure to the nature, and that's what
keeps you grounded.
That's right, and that helps you psychologically. We meet wonderful people along the trail, and I'd like to share with you my friends, Jane and Bob Hartice. We had the great pleasure of finishing the trail with them, and this is them taking their last steps of the 2,100 plus miles.
Wow,
along
what
the
an
trail.
Accomplishment. Well, how special you could be with them for that.
Right, and you can see how happy they are.
Oh, yes. Well, we talked about the benefits. Chuck, what are some of the hazards of being in the trail?
Well, people worry about a lot of things on the trail, but probably the two biggest hazards are falling and hypothermia or cold.
Right, because hiking is a year-round sport.
Yeah, it is. But you know, people worry about cold when it's snowing or freezing, but probably the most dangerous temperature is 35 degrees and raining.
Well, what happens if you fall? How do you deal with an emergency like that?
Yeah. Well,
especially if you can't walk.
Falling is part of backpacking. We probably fall every 3 or 4 days, one of us.
I just assumed that's why you carried the poles, to help steady you.
They do. They help enormously. Obviously wearing good shoes, keeping the weight in your pack down, being properly dressed, all reduce the amount of falling.
Well,
but when you're on a long trail, you're going to trip and fall from time to time.
If there is an emergency, do other hikers render assistance?
Oh, yes, they do. Now, most falls are harmless, but we were hiking with a brother-in-law of Ann's, and he slipped, put his weight all down on the other leg to catch himself, and tore the tendon from his kneecap. And so he was incapacitated, and we were several miles from a road, and he didn't seem to be in any condition to get down off the mountain. But we had a lot of help. We were able to get him splinted. Other hikers carried his gear down off the mountain and loaned us poles, and because he didn't have a pair of poles, and we managed to walk him off the mountain.
Story with a happy ending.
It was. We got down just as it was getting dark.
Well, I'm so happy that you were able to come tonight and share this great experience with us. And see, the strength of our country is woven by its people and their contributions. We encourage you to get out there, keep walking, start hiking. You'll enjoy it. It'll be good for you. Remember, it's the strength of our people and our ideals and values that make us really proud to be American and a strong nation. We'll be back again next week. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you then. Good night. Good night, Ann and Chuck.
Good night. Thank you,
for being here. You're welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for watching. Send your comments to WGCB, Post Office Box 88, Red Line, Pennsylvania 17356.